Gymnastics Teaching Resource. This is a resource for teachers to use to plan the lesson and to execute during. So the learning objectives are to foster a fun learning environment, students to become proficient in holding static movements, students to attempt to perform a forward roll, handstand, and finally to put the two movements together to perform a handstand forward roll. These learning objectives align with the PDHP curriculum. They focus on the skill domain of movement, specifically fundamental and specialized movement skills and concepts. All three movements target non-locomotor skills, specifically body control, positioning, spatial awareness, direction, force and precision, and they do this by bending, stretching, turning, landing, stopping, and balancing. The movements also teach students locomotor skills through body control, coordination, safe landing, and leaping, as well as stability and body control, especially the handstand in this situation through spatial and effort awareness, balance, coordination through static balance. And finally, we're able to combine and connect a variety of skills, which teaches students to transition from one skill to another, through from the forward roll, the handstand, and then finally connecting them into the handstand forward roll. Finally, we have an overview of the lesson, which will start with an activity and then move from each skill to finally perform a handstand forward roll. To get students warmed up, they can play a modified version of Stuck in the Mud. When a student is tagged, they need to hold a static movement for 5 seconds before resuming the game. These are previous static movements that would have been taught in the earlier lessons of gymnastics, and these include dog with a sore leg, which is a handstand progression, an L sit, a front support, an angry cat, which is a forward roll progression, as well as the tuck sit, back support, and then crocodile snaps, which is a progression for the handstands. Once students are warmed up by playing Stuck in the Mud, we'll move to the floor apparatus to perform a handstand. Before progressing through the movements to perform a handstand, it's important to remind students of the handstand teaching points. Grip the ground, straighten their elbows, tuck their head to avoid injury. You can tell them to pretend to hold a pencil under their chin to their chest. They need to tighten their glutes and legs, and they need to point their toes like a ballerina. Students will then progress to perform a dog with a sore leg. Once they feel comfortable, they'll move on to a crocodile snap. Then on the third progression, they'll have support at the top of the handstands. And then on the fourth final movement, they can perform a handstand freely. The second part of the lesson will also be using the floor apparatus to perform a forward roll. The following teaching points should be discussed with students. Hands should be shoulder width apart and facing in the direction that the student wants to roll. Students should tuck their head. You can tell them to pretend to hold a pencil under their chin, similar to the handstand. Students need to push through their feet, performing the bunny hop motion. Students will then roll into a tuck seat, extend through their legs, and land in a motorbike position. Students will begin by performing a bunny hop to get used to the idea of being upside down and to start with some momentum. This progression is optional, but if students are lacking confidence, a wedge might be able to assist with some comfort and momentum on the way down. Students begin by placing their hands shoulder width apart in the direction they want to roll. They tuck their head, perform a bunny hop, and roll into a tuck sit and land in a motorbike landing. Once students are confident enough, it's important to kneel down, place one hand on the shin and one on the head, pushing the head under to make sure it remains tucked and assisting with some momentum through the legs. After the previous progressions, students should become confident to perform the forward roll on their own. They must remember to point their hands in the direction they want to go, tuck their head, and push through the legs. The final section of this lesson combines the handstand and the forward roll to perform a handstand forward roll. As it's a combination of movements, the teaching points remain the same for a handstand and a forward roll, but students should know the additional teaching points, which is to hold the handstand shape before progressing into rolling the shoulders into an angry cat shape. This will enable students to roll over into the forward roll position. Students should continue to tuck their head to avoid injury, roll out of the tuck position with bent arms, and land in a motorbike landing. The progressions for a handstand forward roll are a forward roll and a handstand separately, as previously discussed. But if we break it down into a step-by-step approach, we can see that the movements performed have previously been taught in other lessons, and students should be becoming more confident. Students should begin the movement with their foot pointed forwards in the direction that they want to go, then go down into a dog with a sore leg position, up into a crocodile snap, into a handstand where the students should tuck their head, roll their shoulders forward into an angry cat position, and begin to bend in their arms. On the way down, students' hands will come off the ground. They can wrap around the legs to perform a tuck sit, and the momentum should carry them through to a motorbike landing.